Hi, I'm just here checking over the steering problems on your 2020 Kawasaki Brute Force 750 with EPS. You said you were having some problems with the electric power steering. It was binding up or not working the way it should, and then it would work and then it wouldn't, and so on. Anyway, so I've had a chance. I took the bike for a little ride. I did experience the same thing that you have been. So the steering would bind up on me. So before we go too serious into electrical issues with the electric power steering, especially where I don't see an EPS warning light on, I decided that I should check over the front end of the bike and just get an idea of what mechanical issues that could affect your steering first. So first thing I found, all four tires on the bike are flat. And when I say flat, my tire gauge, you can see it laying there beside the left rear wheel. Doesn't read any pressure under 2 psi, and it just shows 0 at that point. And all four of your tires show 0. And actually, if I don't know if I can do it with one hand or not, if I push in on your left rear tire, I can lift the tire away from the bead. So that tells me that tire is flat. So that's one issue that for sure will add resistance to the steering, because these of course do have the EPS units have a torque sensor in them, and that can mess things up when you have any kind of issues with rolling or bearing issues or anything like that. So that's one. Next problem, probably show it the most, and see the most in so if we go to your inner tie rod end on the right hand side, that one's the ones in the worst shape, but I feel play in all four of your tie rod ends, inner and outer, that one being the worst. So I would recommend changing those and having that done. There's also problems where you can get into issues with the lower bushing here and the bottom end of the EPS. I don't see any big issue with that at the moment or anything. The non-EPS models have bearing there. This one doesn't. Next, so if we go to that left outer CV joint, you can see the grease bubbling out through that. And so what I've been doing is I've been experimenting here a little bit with turning the wheel quickly, and I did it when I had the tires on it and I felt it. No power applied or anything like that to the bike. But if you turn the wheel and you keep turning it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, it would bind up. And that's without the key on, without the engine running. So that tells me we have some type of mechanical problem. It's either in the EPS unit or somewhere else. And I have seen problems before with bad axles, because as you turn your wheels, it also affects where the rotation of the wheel is and stuff. So all these things, you can have a broken axle on the left side, and if it's binding, it's going to affect the way the EPS unit performs and the way the steering works. So as I experiment with things, I found that if I get to the spot where it was binding and then try to turn the wheel, so I've left it in the spot where it bound last, and it's hard to turn the wheel. Once I get it moving again, it's okay. And then when I get to a spot again, when I'm turning it back and forth, that it binds up again, I have a hard time getting over that spot again to make the wheels turn. So what I'm thinking is, at minimum, you have an issue with that CV joint, so I can feel it right there. As I'm turning that as hard as I can with my hand. It doesn't want to move. So I would suggest we pop that CV joint apart. I take this boot off, and you can see for sure that it's leaking grease, so it's likely got stuff in it. Hear the little squeaking sound. We might either need a new axle on this side or a new CV joint. The joints themselves are pretty expensive, so if we get into needing that, sorry about that, I put your zoom back in. If you get into needing the new CV joint from Kawasaki, you're just as well off just getting a whole new axle that's aftermarket. The price is about the same, especially when you factor in the labor. I did have another bike in the past that it didn't have, so we're not going to go worst case here. So we're just going to find things out as we go, because I don't want to go tearing a whole bunch of stuff apart and then finding out there's no issues. But in the past, I did have an older bike. It was 2016 or 2017, and it had problems with steering, but it also didn't have four-wheel drive on one side. And what I found out was when I pulled everything apart, it had the splined end of the axle was broke off inside the differential. And what that had happened in that case is most likely either while the wheels were spinning or something along those lines, the customer had engaged that diff lock up there. And with the wheels spinning and engaging the diff lock or the four-wheel drive while the bike was moving, it destroyed the inside of the differential. So it broke the axle, it broke a case, and it wrecked a bunch of bearings and stuff. But the bike still had four-wheel drive on the right front wheel, but it didn't steer very well because of the drag on the EPS unit from that side. Anyway, what I would suggest to start with, for sure, we're going to pump the tires up, replace those tie rod ends, and either replace this axle, or I'll pull the boot off and I'll see what kind of shape the joint's in first. But I have a feeling that this may be your issue, and we're going to hope that there's no problems in there. So if you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks, and have a great day.